Welcome back everyone to the Gaming on the Brain podcast. This week, something a little bit different, as we did mention in the Empire of Steel episode last week. Due to time constraints and holidays, me and Glenn have taken a couple of weeks break. In the meantime, we're diving into our back catalogue of episodes. So this week we're releasing Alien Storm. This is a bit of a pre-intro, and the reason why is because we were mentioned in the introduction that we recorded. That was the first episode. So ignore that when you hear it. We will be back next week with the Pit Fighter bonus episode, which isn't going to have a proper number. However, we hope you enjoy it anyway. Please enjoy this episode. As always, give us a like, drop us a comment, subscribe. And we'll see you for the intro in a few seconds. Thanks now. What's up everyone? Welcome to the Gaming on the Brain podcast. This is our first episode, numero uno. And today we are talking about Alien Storm. But before we get into that, I'm Mark. And
I'm Glenn. Together we're brothers.
My favourite brother sitting next to me right here is Glenn, like he says. We've spent many, many years playing games together.
Definitely.
Hating games together, loving games together.
Nearly 40 years.
Since days back from the VIC-20 onwards.
Or with the Commodore 64 years.
I was merely probably a
zygote.
Barely a baby at that point. But yeah, I mean, for me, from the C64 onwards.
We're not biased.
No,
we're not biased
at all.
So basically the attitude being, we'll go from the earliest computers that we've loved to some we've maybe explored, to the great consoles, NES, Mega Drive, Master System, SNES, onwards to everything in between. We're not even biased between the different generations. So even when we grew up as Commodore people, I love the Spectrum, I love the Amstrad. We grew up as Sega Mega Drive people, I love the Super Nintendo and I love the NES.
I think between us and, maybe even personally, I've owned every one of those consoles
at different times
at some point. Yeah, so you won't get any of this Super Nintendo, Sega Mega Drive bashing.
But we will compare versions of different games where it's applicable, and you will get that sometime, because it is, and there is better and worse versions in the case of some games, which we'll obviously come to at some point.
The main thing is here, we want to share this with you guys, and above all, we'd love your engagement. So please listen, watch, whichever way you're going to do this with the podcast or YouTube video, once we get around to doing that, if there's ever a point. We do intend to be here weekly with a new episode. Please, if you enjoy, give us a like, subscribe, but comment above all, because we want to talk to you guys as well. Potentially one day get you involved as well. It's your channel as much as ours. So, I hope you enjoy, and see you on the other side. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
You've got Gaming on the Brain.
Welcome back everyone to another episode of Gaming on the Brain podcast. Today we have Alien Storm, especially the arcade version, but we'll also cover some of the other conversions such as the Mega Drive, Amiga, Commodore potentially.
Spectrum, Amstrad, C64.
There's quite a few out there.
Yeah, just briefly.
But we'll focus mainly on the arcade version, which happens to run on System 18 hardware. I don't think there was many cabinets out there, from what I remember.
There was a few interesting games came out on the System 18 hardware. I mean, Shadow Dancer, Secret of Shinobi, of course, and E-SWAT. No, sorry, not E-SWAT. In fact, E-SWAT was System 16. It was, but it was DD Crew and Desert Breaker, which were two very obscure ones, because those two games never had a home release. DD Crew's not really a great game in its own right anyway, but it exists.
You loved that game.
I bought the PCB at one point.
It's terrible.
We both played it together and we both hated it together.
You forced me to play.
Yeah,
it was terrible.
Enemies with guns that don't fire, and
we'll have to cover that one. Yeah,
terrible. But obviously, Desert Breaker, another very obscure one, but Desert Breaker is interesting because it literally is an almost carbon copy of Mercs with one or two little bells and whistles on.
Yeah.
And it feels literally like a sequel or remake of Mercs, but it's another obscure and interesting 3-player as well, like Mercs. 3-player shooter, just obviously a game if people want to check out, being a bit more of an obscure one, you know. Oh, and another great game, nearly forgot probably the most important one, Moonwalker. The Moonwalker arcade
System
game.
18?
That was System 18. Moonwalker as well was unique because Moonwalker, the arcade game, never got converted to anything. I mean, the Master System, Mega Drive, computer versions, all very different games, good games generally, but not the same game as the Moonwalker arcade game. One thing I will say about the System 18 PCB, which many of you listen might know anyway, but some might not. But if you do buy these PCBs, please be aware that they have a suicide battery system, right. And these batteries they're quite difficult to replace. From the last time I looked, you need to have a bit of know-how, you know, to actually. They are fixable, but there is a bit of work involved. So buying these old PCBs could potentially be dead or dying, you know. So just something to be mindful with a System 18. That's not the only system that does that. There's quite a few Capcom systems, including CPS2, also has a suicide battery system in it. So it's just something to watch out for.
I wasn't aware System 18 had a suicide battery.
Yeah, terrible for the suicide battery. Like,
it's not great for keeping these things alive, is it? I'm sure you can change them out, but
I mean, it's the thing is as well. About 10-15 years ago, when this was happening, people didn't necessarily have the know-how to fix the system. Where in the last few years, it's become more approachable, and people are knowledgeable, about how to actually repair it. So it's just one for the arcade collectors, really. I mean, there's obviously a lot of you are out there, and classic games like Alien Storm, Moonwalker, you know, like we've just mentioned, classic games like that, and of course the CPS2 system will possibly die on you at one time, you know. So bear in mind these things are now 30 plus years old generally. So how long does a battery last? You know, how long does these battery last? And I don't really know, to be honest. You know, I've never really worked it out. So just be aware of it.
Well, getting back into Alien Storm. Alien Storm was in the arcade, released in 1990, I believe, by Sega.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, I remember Bellaby's Amusements. I'd finished the game on Double Dragon.
Yeah, Bellaby's was a local amusement. We're down our way. It was a small place. It doesn't run those sort of games now.
While I was playing Double Dragon, all you could hear in the background was Alien Storm Attract mode. And as soon as I finished on Double Dragon, I mean, typically I'd have no money left at this point, so I couldn't play Alien Storm, but I'd always be looking at it thinking, I love this game. I've played it before, but the Attract mode was absolutely tremendous, and it did a hell of a job of bringing people into the game to have a go. If you've ever seen it before in the arcade,
like the physical cabinet,
the physical cabinet itself's brilliant, but that Attract mode, you know, showing, I don't want to get too much into the style of game at the moment because we're going to cover that anyway, but it would show you the different variations of the gameplay, and it would just be flashy, and you know, it was a brilliant Attract mode. Really, really well presented game. In my opinion, I think one of the best that I've seen in the arcade, you know.
What I thought as well, I mean, with Alien Storm being a 3-player cab, I mean, or 2-player games like Double Dragon is a good example, and the first Golden Axe are great, and the cabinets look great, and obviously you'll use a pretty generic cabinet anyway for kits, if you want to use a kit for those older cabinets. But having a dedicated 3-player Alien Storm, just like a 4-player Turtles, it's just an experience just to play that game in 3-player. Great playing field, you know, fantastic sprite work, great soundtrack, you know, making the game an absolute joy to play, like on all versions, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's break down some of the you know, the core things around the game. I mean, let's talk about the, you know, the graphics, animation, for example. So, I mean, graphics wise, for me it's very, very similar to Golden Axe. So
yeah, you know, there's a reason for that one.
I'm sure many people out there have played Golden Axe. You know, if you haven't, then you're missing out. Go and play it now.
It's a brilliant game. Always has been. Yeah.
But I mean, I'll let you have this bit because you did your research. So I mean, Golden Axe and Alien Storm are more connected than
yes, definitely. Yeah, I mean, apart from some of the development team working also on Alien Storm and Altered Beast as well, which you can clearly see from the arcade intro sequence, which I thought was quite a cool little Easter egg to check that out, just to see the link back to Golden Axe, and obviously All That Beast, which has its own little links to Golden Axe as well, apart from the theme not being too dissimilar. But with Alien Storm, there was some, this was an early magazine from about 1989. I'd read that Alien Storm was originally conceived to be Golden Axe 2 in the arcades. Obviously that didn't work out right. The theme couldn't be more different, could it? There is some shared mechanics, definitely. You've got a magic ability to some degree. There is a little feel there that of Golden Axe movement. Yeah, the characters look...
Two out of the three
characters easily look like they're based clearly on classic Golden Axe 2 characters. Don't need to mention the names if you know the name of the game, because you'll know just by looking at them, and straight when you go, I see a resemblance, like almost, like they were Forerunner and like an ancestor of those these new characters.
It could be one way
going from Golden Axe. But as well, it was I liked the whole story and theme behind Alien Storm. It's to me, the Ghostbusters influence is very clear there. We've agreed on this somewhere. They're called Alien Busters from Alien Burgers, that. But they're dancing in the credit sequence at the end with the main characters and the enemies, and just the whole sort of slightly zany comedic theme. There's definitely a little nod back there to Ghostbusters, but obviously to look at the game initially, the clear influences obviously from classics like the Alien films. And definitely from The Thing, I would have said John Carpenter's The Thing. There's definitely some visible... Some of the aliens there's some fantastic looking designs there. Again, which will lead into another game, which I'll talk about very quickly. But those designs, they go from being pretty generic to like the slimes on the floor and maybe even the slug characters, even though they're still fairly interesting, because they'll always have they'll have a bin on the back, or a telephone booth, or a Coke machine and stuff. So that's interesting in itself, when they'll spout from those receptacles. But some of the later creatures, as I said, you look at them and how twisted they are. Some of the boss characters, you start to look, you can clearly see a influence from John Carpenter's The Thing, which, while we're on the presentation and the sprite work, have to mention a game called Alien Syndrome, which is generally considered the prequel to Alien Storm. Again, slightly more obscure for some, because Alien Syndrome didn't reach as big as an audience, from what I gather. Still had a fair few versions. It's not a very
good game in my opinion.
It's a different game. Alien Storm definitely has...
shooter,
it's more of a much open... it's a little bit more comparable to something like Gauntlet at that time.
Yeah.
Or in more recent years, when I say more recent, I still mean the early 90s, looking at a game like Alien Breed, maybe. But again, the monster designs in that game, just talking about them, especially the bosses in Alien Syndrome, are even more twisted than the stuff in Alien Storm. In fact, anybody who hasn't played Alien Syndrome, I would dare you just to check out the arcade long play, just to have a look at the various bosses and how absolutely messed up they are. And like I said, if you're interested in Alien Storm as a game as well, you're probably worth checking out Syndrome if you haven't already done so.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it is the prequel, really, isn't it? Whether it's official or not, you can tell it.
The funny thing with Sega games, apart from clear sequels like Shinobi and Golden Axe, is that you do, when the name changes slightly, like from Syndrome to Storm and that, people do sort of look at the game, and I hear different reports that say, oh, it is the sequel, or it's not the sequel, or it's just a similar game.
It's like a shared universe.
Yeah, shared universe. To me...
Like Marvel.
Well, I didn't, but before Marvel, before the actual universe, the films. But, so I like to think personally that Syndrome is the prequel, and that Alien Storm would have been Golden Axe 2 at one time, which I think is very funny.
I think in order to set us on the correct way forward with the rest of this, we should probably jump into the levels at the moment.
Oh, definitely.
Because then, we can explain that a little bit, and then we can talk about a bit more depth on the characters and the heroes and stuff like that,
Well, if I mention the levels for myself, now I will call the levels in the arcade version. Missions, yes, right. I'll call them a mixed bag, because bear in mind what we've just briefly spoke about before, about Alien Storm being sort of almost a sequel to Golden Axe. Now, Golden Axe, I love Golden Axe because it managed to give you various... the levels were quite unique. Elevated levels. You could bring new techniques into that and different strategies, and that was like something classic in Double Dragon as well, you know. Final Fight's a great game, but it moved away from that design, and you had your flat levels, which is still doesn't make it a bad game, but it is nice to have the variation of a level where you've got different elevations and different platforms. Now, sadly, Alien Storm does not do that at all.
Yeah, the first, I mean, all the missions.
There's some generic
I mean, the first four missions, you take the first 4 missions, right? Not talking about this way the stages are split up, because the way it works,
we'll get there.
You've got 6 missions in total. Each mission split into several stages, which we'll touch on properly in a moment. But the first...
There's a saving grace, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. The first 4 missions, for example, and I mean, I wrote it down great here, to be honest. There's not much variety in the environments in all 6 missions. I mean, the first 4, you'll go through like basically a high street, an industrial area, that kind of thing, very generic stuff. And then the last 2 missions you'll spend on board.
And that's on one level, almost like one type of area, isn't it? Those
exactly,
2 last missions.
In space on an alien mothership, which we'll get into the reasons why in a minute. But the way this game does save itself is in the fact that the stages are split up into 3 variations of game types.
Yeah.
So what you have, you'll have basically like a typical Terminator 2 / Operation Wolf type shoot 'em up section,
which is very prominent.
Yeah, really well
fully
done.
destructible environment. Yeah,
everything's destructible. You'll be shooting into the screen, killing all the aliens, picking up energy, which we'll explain a little bit in a minute as well. Really good little sections. Typically last about a minute to a minute and a half long.
Yeah, never outstay, do they?
Never outstay. You'll have a basically a horizontal shoot 'em up section.
Yeah.
Where your character's running along the screen and you'll be shooting all the enemies coming. You can jump over obstacles and things like that just to keep it a bit more interesting.
They have 1 or 2 of those levels, have their own mini boss fights and all the mothership and that with the UFO. Sorry,
you'll have and your typical core game mode is the expected hack and slash, which is reminiscent of that of Golden Axe and whatnot.
You've got a good variation of moves as well.
It is, and again we'll get into the characters and some of their moves and stuff like that, but the game does a really good job of splitting things up and keeping things a little bit varied to the point where it keeps you hooked for the 25-30 minutes or so till the end of the game. And, after that, you want another go because it is a good game. The difficulty as well, I mean, difficulty-wise, I'll admit the arcade version can be a bit of a sponge for sticking credits in.
Yeah, which I think, obviously, to me, that's always intentional. So I never hold, as much as it's not fun at the time to have to do that, the intention from the designer and obviously the arcade operator is to get as much money out as you can. So I do fully get behind that. So obviously when we're playing them at home now, like on MAME or the many systems that you can actually download, like you can play arcade originals on now, including when I've just mentioned talking about PCBs, if you buy them. Obviously they have their various everybody knows, like, you've got an options settings, dip settings and that do change difficulties and stuff, coinage, lives, energy in many cases and whatnot. So I'm even giving you, some actually have cheats built in. So Alien Storm is, it's never too, if I had to be fair, I mean, my opinion is it's never been too hard. It's a much harder game than Golden Axe.
There's certain sections, I mean, the FPS sections,
can be tough,
towards the end of the game, sometimes it's just impossible to get to an enemy to kill it before it hurts you. The good thing is it doesn't take a lot of life off you, as it's called in this game. Just
bringing my little bit into it about those sections, purely those sections, right? Because I do like them. And like I says, I do believe, bear in mind, it's only 33% of the game. Well, it's 33% of the modes of the game. I wouldn't say 33% of the game, that's wrong. It's nowhere near that much. But they're very good for what they are. I mean, the design of everyone's unique. You've got a car showroom, which I think is great, blowing up Bugattis and Porsches and that. And like I've always just said, these backgrounds are fully destructible. That didn't even happen in Operation Wolf or Thunderbolt, when Thunderbolt came out just slightly before. 1989, before Alien Storm. So although it's not exactly the same, fair enough, you're controlling the crosshair with a joystick, and the game could have benefited from a gun system, which wouldn't have been practical to have that built in. It wouldn't. But I mean, so it does make it a bit harder because the crosshair will never move as fast as an actual gun sight on a portable gun controller like Operation Wolf, etc. But they really are fun and well done. I mean, like I said, it's just the pure destruction of the levels. Here and everything smash. And then you'll have like a big alien in the background will be carrying around a hostage. Usually a screaming woman. Stuff like that. In fact, those levels are the ones that are most lucrative for getting your power-ups as well, because you do get your most energy and life icons from most. So.
Yeah, so maybe we should just touch on that quickly before we'll talk more about levels. But in the game, you've basically, similar to what you have as a magic system, probably more on Golden Axe 2, the Avenger Death Adder, where you can stockpile magic potions.
Yeah. Each player only has one type of magic tech. We don't have to put, you can stockpile, as you say.
So each character, the 3 characters will have their own type of special smart bomb, basically. But you can hold as much energy as you like, up to the point where your bar is full. You'll probably never fill it. It's quite difficult to fill. But it's a way of stopping you from spamming the smart bomb button, essentially.
Yeah.
Now, from all the times I've played through it, I don't think you can run out of energy to the point where you can't use your normal weapon, which does use energy in the Mega Drive, but we'll touch on that a bit more later. But it's there literally just to stop you spamming your magic, essentially. But yeah, as Glenn was saying, in the shooter mode, you get to pick up a lot of energy canisters, which do go towards replenishing your energy. And at the same time, at the end of each mission as well, you'll come across basically a score screen where it totals up your performance in that level, and it'll reward you with some more energy canisters as well.
Yeah,
as well as
the alien types.
As well as some of the aliens you kill throughout the missions as well. When you kill them, some little floating heads will bounce around.
Basically the equivalent of the thieves from Golden Axe.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, so once you kill them, you can pick up energy from them as well. So the way the game works, you've got your life, which is your physical life bar, as in your 3 or 5 life bars on Golden Axe, whichever way you want to play it. And your energy is what affects your magic. Basically, it's your magic use. So I think that explains that enough, to be honest. There's probably nothing to say about that.
Yeah, I suppose it does, yes.
The levels, to break them down a bit better. So, I mean, the first couple of levels, like we say, are very generic. You'll typically start mission 1, for example. There'll be, I think it's 3 or 4 stages in the first mission. And you'll do a few very small stages, they're never more than a couple of minutes each. You do a first, like a shooter stage, on like stage 2 of mission 1. And then I think, actually, no, sorry, does it finish? It finishes the first mission with the shooter stage.
Yeah.
So you finish with the shooter stage at the end of mission 1.
Yes, then, it's in the market.
That's right. Then the end of mission 2, you finish with a running stage, like a running shoot 'em up stage. So you can kind of see right now how this variation.
This confusion will explain itself in the moment when we're talking about the Mega Drive and Master System in a second as well, especially the Mega Drive anyway.
And then mission 3, at the end of mission 3, I think you do both a running stage and a shooting stage in that one.
When you finally take on
but you actually fight a mid-level boss as well.
And it's cool as hell. I've got to mention this character for a second there.
Yeah, go into it.
It's a 3-stage boss in a day with 3-stage bosses. I mean, what the fuck was a 3-stage boss, honestly? This, and it's big. I mean, it starts out, you've got this massive slug-type creature, which is a little bit similar to...
It's got a one on it.
It looked like a witch's face on the back of a slug. It's a horrible looking thing. And this thing fires electric bolts from its front and back end and has a missile attack as well. Now, you kill that and you think you're done, and then that it actually morphs, which I thought was so cool back in 1990.
It's really good, yeah.
It morphs into this enormous, tall, big-gutted, whatever the hell it is, but it's a big sprite as well, and that attacks you by it has a punch where a fist comes out of its belly, or it grabs you with its teeth, tries to get you and eat you and tosses you and that. And when you beat that form, you've got another form, and it turns into a massive cone head thing, and this thing is just absolutely gross. It looks like it should be in Splatterhouse. It's got about 12 eyes and that, and it's got a ring of sort of like, what do we call them? Orifices? Can we call them that, really? It's probably its back end.
It's got buttholes everywhere.
Buttholes, right? And they're firing bombs at you everywhere, or exploding stuff, Finally, when you beat that, not only, it doesn't disappear in a puff of smoke, doesn't explode, it actually goes, and this is extremely cool, even now, it goes into a reverse sort of morphing back through all 3 forms before finally exploding and then turning into loads of the little grasshopper and little dragonfly type things where you get some energy. Such a cool boss at the time. Blew away anything at Golden Axe at the time. In fact, probably the most impressive boss up until that time in my opinion, in any sort of scroll and beat 'em up, because no game did that. I mean, you saw some shooting, some horizontal shooters, a couple would have had varying stages like at the time, like varying more like forms in a boss.
Yeah.
That did happen in those days, but in a beat 'em, in a beat 'em up,
more in the shoot 'em ups.
Yeah, of course. It's
like
R-Type. I was thinking R-Type game. Any R-Type. I don't think offhand they had any multi-stage bosses in that game, but there was up until that point. I can't think off the top of my head personally. There was at that point 2 and 3 stage bosses in some games, but to see it in a beat 'em up and to see it done that well and by Sega, so it was just fantastic. Like in my opinion.
Then mission 4, you're kind of back to the generic again. However, the last mission of the second or third mission of mission 4, you're doing a shoot 'em up section, like a horizontal shoot 'em up section, and you're actually trying to bring down the enemy alien craft.
Yeah, and this
so
is
like a mothership, some small mothership type thing. So you're shooting at that while you're jumping over obstacles that it's thrown at you.
And as you're shooting the bits of it, they come off and they can hit you as well. So you've got to be careful where you're firing them.
It just adds to a bit more variation in the game, just to keep it fresh. And anyway, once you finally bring that down, it doesn't take a lot. You go inside and you shoot the shit out of that. And you do that in a third person section.
Yeah,
in the first person section. Yeah,
you fight a ton of enemies first.
Yeah, in the Operation Wolf style section, and then when you come out, you get abducted by an alien tongue, which then takes you into space for mission 5. And then mission 5 and 6, very similar.
Yeah, slightly disappointing. Yeah. That level for me, I thought was because it does start off with what it does is it throws waves of enemies at you. So you tend to fight one type of enemy, and you'll fight half a dozen of them, and then you might fight another half dozen. Then you'll come to a section where you move through a tunnel. Sometimes there's more than 2 tunnels, and you'll fight another type of enemy, and you'll fight a set of that. And they said, going back to what Mark's saying as well about the level variation, this actually goes on for the 2 final levels, and I did find that a bit disappointing because it literally is. I thought we got confused just yesterday on the conversation where I was like getting mixed up with the levels of the arcade game. Again, compared to the Mega Drive.
Mixed up, yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's one level. It's not. It's 2 separate missions, and it's like a little bit not as could have been done better. Could have been done a bit better, but so be it.
What Glenn just kind of briefed on there was there's actually at the end of each stage in mission 5 and mission 6 there's multiple choice for paths you can take. Like Glenn said, sometimes there's 2 options, sometimes there's 3 options. Now, I tend to take the same path all the time because I know a good path through mission 5.
So Mega Drive version does confuse.
But I know in mission 6, I always try and take the best path, but I always end up fighting mission 3 boss again.
And it's exactly the same, isn't it? It's all 3 stages all over again.
And it's quite a long fight. Takes a lot of effort. He kicks your ass, you use a few credits and stuff like that. And I just can't seem to avoid him, so I don't know how much.
On the flip side, the final boss is easy, no? The final boss is quite easy.
I don't know how much option there really is in these multiple choices and whether they just take you wherever you're meant to go anywhere.
We've played the game, and I've played the game again just recently, and I've watched a long play as well just recently, and I don't think the player was deliberately doing what they were doing, but every time the pattern of what they fought and in what order they fought was exactly the same, which again doesn't apply to the Mega Drive at all. In fact, if I remember quite rightly, you can sort of get lost on the Mega Drive and you can keep on going through the same levels if you pick the wrong exits. It's not a massively confusing maze. It's one of them ones where you'll go through an exit and you'll pick the wrong one and the next time to pick the second or then the third. But there is definitely a little bit more of a maze element in the Mega Drive, if I remember correctly.
And then the final boss is it's an Operation Wolf style section where you're fighting the brain from the alien screen. I think
it is. It's the brain. It's the alien brain inside the mothership, basically.
Yeah. So it's basically a case that you've got loads of enemies coming at you. You've got energy canisters to pick up. You can't use your smart bomb in these sections.
No, you can't. No,
it's only for stocking up. And you're shooting away at this alien brain until it's destroyed, and then that's it. You're done. You've finished the Alien Storm. Well done. You've probably spent about £2 or 20 credits or something trying to get. Because it's not the easiest game. It does have difficulty spikes where it intends to.
The thing about Alien Storm is it's just even if you threw say £5 in, that's not cheap, and it wouldn't have been cheap in 1990 or 1991. But if you hoid £5 in that machine, and especially if you're playing 2 or 3 player, you could turn and say, "I've had a good time." Though it's like we had a good laugh,
But like I say, it's a 25-minute, 30-minute long game.
Yeah,
that is varied enough to the point where you're not. It's not like Final Fight or something where, you
50 minutes nearly.
You can get bored. You're half an hour and you're like, oh, I might as well finish it now. But it's like, you feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again. It varies things up with its different game modes.
It's definitely a much tougher game than Golden Axe now, which now
Golden Axe there's a lot of element of skill.
Yeah.
If you're good at Golden Axe, you can finish it in one credit.
Yeah, Golden Axe can be completely very easy. And
Alien Storm. I mean, I noticed.
Yeah, you have to slog a bit.
That mid-level boss, for example.
Yeah.
There's no way to really get him without taking hits.
A bit of damage, yeah.
Where on the Mega Drive version, you can do your run and jump over attack, which we'll go into the controls in a bit. But you can keep doing that backwards and forwards and kill him without taking many hits. So the arcade version just doesn't allow that at all. You got no chance.
No. So just quickly to touch on Golden Axe 2 home version, just quickly. Obviously, that was the true sequel to Golden Axe on the consoles. I'm not even going to go into the Revenge of Death out of the day. It's a special game for me and him that probably needs a 3-hour long documentary. 3 hour long. It's but Golden Axe 2 on the Mega Drive, great game. But obviously, it did the Double Dragon 2. They took the Double Dragon 2 route, and that it's pretty much Golden Axe 1 with a couple of little changes here and there. Personally, I love Golden Axe 2. I love it. I always have, and I think it's a great game. But it's a bad sequel. I consider it not a good sequel because of what it makes the game a tiny bit harder than Golden Axe 1. It's only a smidgen harder. It doesn't really change much up. It does introduce the element with the magic. Remember, Golden Axe 2 in the home did actually have that element where you could change. You could do the stop pile, use a single spell at once every time.
That was it.
Instead of using them all, and so. Obviously, I also used to change my option to play that way. It has exactly the same amount of enemies, but it changes them, but enough. But that each enemy is a version of an enemy from Golden Axe 1. Obviously, one exception is that the little thieves are now replaced with the wizards, which actually fight you. Actually fight, and they can be nasty when they're on the back of a Bazarian and all kind of. But say anyway, Golden Axe 2. Obviously, what Alien Storm may have been intended to be originally, like for an arcade version.
I wouldn't know why we got into Golden Axe 2.
Couldn't help it. I got there for set. I like to throw a loop in there, But Golden Axe 2, it's a great game, but nowhere near the creativity what Alien Storm brought to it. So that was I had to put that bit in there. Like,
I think levels. We'll probably said enough. Is it?
Well, I wouldn't mind mentioning. I mean, I know we're going to talk about versions, but I would definitely like to just mention the Mega Drive briefly because we have mentioned it. I know we're going to have a quick chat about versions, definitely. But I would
like Golden Axe 1 and Mega Drive, it makes it a bit more value for money, doesn't it?
Oh, massive. But as I say, I could mention the Master System now, but I'll avoid that because I've only just started doing a bit of research on that version, so I'll mention that very separately where we'll speak about the computer versions, which in my opinion are actually quite good. But the Mega Drive version, briefly. It's very much remixed. I mean, there is many of the levels from the arcade game are in there, but they've been swapped around. So level, like for instance, is a good example. The very first level in the Mega Drive version, which takes place in a railroad section and ends up at a warehouse where you're in a warehouse in a third person section. That's quite late on in the arcade version. In fact, I think it's mission 4. I think it's the start of mission 4. In fact, I'm quite sure it is.
It might.
It could be 3, possibly. It could be 3, but 3 or 4.
Like we said,
it does confuse you a bit. Where I say Golden Axe is obviously which levels are where and what
because it all looks different. Where like we said before, there's not much variety in the environments. Unfortunately, it's only let down for me of the game.
There is as well. There is some levels between the two versions are a little bit different. I mean, the Mega Drive actually includes a brand new laboratory level, which is very good. I mean, it's got traps in there as well. Turtles related, like reminds
music as well. Now,
its own tunes and its own third perspective level, which is not in the arcade. So obviously, many of you, if you like Alien Storm, you'll have definitely owned or played the Mega Drive version at least. But it is a fantastic game. It is, as far as like remixes go, as I'll call it. It's on a similar, maybe not exactly the same, but it's on a similar level to say E-SWAT, which was a completely remixed game on the almost a sequel really on the
Shadow Dancer
and Shadow Dancer, sequel to Shinobi as well, which is a game we mentioned previous. Anyway, Mark, you're going to talk about controls?
Yeah. Well, actually, before we get into controls, mate, we'll talk about the sound and the music because we might as well, seeing as we're on the levels.
Cybernet P.
Now, I think one of the main traits of System 18 is there's a lot of voice effects.
And they're very clear,
I mean, I'm thinking DD Crew here that game. So annoying.
I hate that game as well.
No, you don't. You love it. You kiss its butt. Awesome. for you.
I would have, but if I still had the PCB.
But I think there's a lot of voice audio in there, audio effects, and they're all good, nice and clear and
Good
everything.
sample effects and all that,
good samples, yeah. But for me,
great soundtrack.
The music is it's really good. I mean, I would go as far as say it doesn't fit the settings sometimes, but
it's jolly.
Yeah,
it's quite jolly.
It's quite jolly.
That's where the Ghostbusters element comes in for me.
Yeah,
do you not think that?
I do. And it's memorable music as well. I mean, when you finish the game and you could potentially walk away, humming some of the tunes, Well,
I've got them. I've downloaded some on me. Actually, I'm not frightened to admit this because I like gaming soundtracks, and I've got certain tracks from games. I've got 4 of the different tracks from Alien Storm on my computer, and I love it. I love the boss theme, which is called Neuropath. The titles are on the Mega Drive version soundtrack, so you can see them. And Cybernet P, which is one of the lab tunes. There's a couple of others as well, but great music.
Yeah, I mean, you'll know from the likes of Golden Axe and everything, the Sega hardware is a very accomplished hardware for audio.
Oh, of course, all their hardware's on there.
And it's, I mean, it is. You've got to hear it, but it's almost like a cross between, like you say, Ghostbusters music crossed with a supermarket lift music.
It is. No, it is. It is. It's just like, ambient, ambience.
Well, it's a jovial. It's got a beat behind it. It's not like an ambient music. It's just like something that'll get in your brain.
But it goes from that to the more creepy vibe of Cybernet P. Like, just check on YouTube Cybernet P. It's one of the tracks from the shooter levels, and it's like. Yeah. That feels like something from Aliens or Alien,
that's got
right. It's not a friendly track at all. It does sound like quite sort of dark and foreboding and that, and it's like that. Again, it's just down to the magic of Sega, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. Now I'll be honest, I played the Mega Drive version again today, and it takes that music and kind of just rocks it up a little bit.
It's great. The two
percussion and
so close. One criticism of Golden Axe being that, I actually like the Mega Drive version of Golden Axe music. I've not a problem with that, but it is generally quite different from the arcade version.
It's nowhere near as good as the arcade version because it hasn't got that percussion set.
It's not. Where Alien Storm does what, for me, many of the Capcom games did, where, like, say, Mercs is a good example when I spoke about earlier. Mercs, the Mega Drive version, sounds almost exactly like the arcade. Alien Storm has that magic about it as well, I think, and it just brings you into that game so much more, Alien Storm, definitely, on the Mega Drive, fantastic.
Oh, it's a brilliant, absolutely brilliant conversion to the point where I can imagine
at some point. No?
Yeah, getting it now, but I can imagine some people prefer the Mega Drive version over the arcade.
Generally, yeah, because you would have probably grown up.
It's a game of more skill than the arcade one.
To go back to what we talked about a bit earlier, quickly before moving on. Obviously, Alien Storm, as I mentioned, a 3-player cabinet. Now, it wasn't always a 3-player cabinet. Very expensive 3-player cabinet, It was a 2-player cabinet. Now, if I've got my facts right, I believe the 3-player cab was more of a Western or Western or worldwide release, while the Japanese Alien Storm only came as a 2-player version. Now, the characters, 2 of the main characters, Gordon and Carla, actually have different colour schemes to reflect this as well.
Thank you.
Karen.
It's Carla. Well,
Gordon.
It's Carla.
Gordon.
Garth.
Gordon, man.
Where are you getting that from?
Gordon. Seriously, Gordon.
See, I've done my research and I've got Garth, Carla, and Scooter.
Mind you. See, we're learning new things.
Garth, Karen, and Scooter.
I wonder if that's a Japanese title, isn't it? If I haven't, that's right. Because Gordon and Carla. So
we'll have to look after the character shortly, but so Garth.
These are Japanese names. This must be something different.
And it's, from what I read, some of the European conversions call her Carla.
Carla is the name. Carla is the name that I've always used for as well.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if the European home versions are actually, like when I say European, I mean the computer versions. In fact, now quickly, I'm not talking about these yet, but that they might have changed the names around a little bit, but
it was. I noticed. I think it was the Amiga version today. I was looking at that was Carla.
I was
thinking, it's Carla on that one. So, aye. So the 3 main characters, we know. Well, according to Wikipedia, according to several sources, you've got Garth, Karen, and Scooter, but also Gordon Karen and
Gordon Carler and Slammer.
I call it and Slammer. Yeah. So it sounds like in different territories there's different names for the characters or different versions potentially.
We're going to guess now. The ones I've always grown up would be Gordon and Carler and Scooter. So, but that's maybe from playing the PAL European, maybe American versions of the games. So I think what have happened is it's the Japanese, possibly Japanese arcade Mega Drive. Now those names are
the three main characters. I don't think there's like Golden Axe. You've got like Axe Battler, who's like a mid-range character. Then you've got Tyrus, who's a bit faster. That's good range on a kick. But she might as well bring a toothpick to the battle.
Yeah.
Where Gilius
is tough as nails.
Yeah, tough as nails. Long reach with his axe. I don't know. From playing Alien Storm multiple times, I can't really feel much difference in the characters.
That was one thing which I've picked up on and all. I've never really seen. Now, I tend to you as well. We tend to go for Scooter because he's just cool.
He's brilliant.
He's just, to look at, and plus he would be the Gilius Thunderhead equivalent, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah.
Everyone loves Gilius Thunderhead. Yeah, he is. They've all got said one different type of. We'll call it a magic attack just to compare for a second against Golden Axe.
Scooters
and Scooters is great, we'll not even spoil it if you don't know, just go and check on YouTube.
No, do spoil it.
Oh, we will spoil it. He blows himself up and he leaves his head behind him.
You can't worry about spoilers. Well, how old is this game? Nearly.
It's only 40-year-old nearly, I know, 37-year-old.
Fuck spoilers.
And he's basically 37-year-old. No, it's not 37-year-old, is it?
90s to be 33.
33, man, 33. See, losing it. And he basically press that button, right, and he blows himself up and leaves his head behind him. And new Scooter comes on and picks his head up. It does only use your energy, not your life energy. So it's not as bad as using the suicide magic of the Revenge of Shinobi.
In comparison to the other characters, Karen, whatever her name is tomorrow, there's like a sword or something comes down the middle of the screen and just everything goes white.
It's like a bomb. And Gordon has like a ship fly over and
like a gunship comes over and shoots loads of
cluster bombs.
Now typically it'll kill every enemy on screen unless it's like the
boss, big boss character.
Any of the mid-level bosses, the only mid-level boss, or all three forms of it anyway. But it does typically kill everything on the screen.
And is different. The thing is as well, it does follow one of the Golden Axe trope. There is different levels of enemies, so there's about 3 or 4 different colours of each one, and they are, you'll go from your basic grunt level up to your like sort of elite, if you want to call them that.
Yeah.
And there will be different speeds and different attack powers and different health. So some of the very toughest versions of them, I think they can take at least one smart bomb, but they will go down.
That is a beautiful way to segue into the enemies themselves. There's, as Glenn touched on earlier, there's definitely a the Thing.
Definitely
influence here.
Just on some of them, not every character.
I mean, it goes from pools of pink
with eyes, little
eyes on the floor, which take like one blast of hit from your energy weapon, which is your typical weapon in the game, up to like these strange.
They're the toughest. Are you talking about the slug type things where it sort of looks like it's got half a man inside of it, and the face is sprouting out the side of it?
Yeah.
It's quite creepy. That definitely looks inspired by the thing.
There's an enemy there that's like basically the size of half a pony.
But
like a big blob. It looks like a slug with like a big mouth. And as Glenn said, it's got a bloke inside that can come out and grab you and pull you in.
It's weird.
And it's got faces on the side of it and stuff, like human faces. And it's really well.
The Alien Storm cast of aliens even has a grappler amongst them, doesn't it? Because it's got a strange sort of flying mouth creature with massive hands, and its speciality is basically like it grips you and
folds in, or it grabs all you and uses its like honeybee tongue to dart out.
The slug creatures are obviously quite interesting because they're quite varied amongst themselves, even with not just colour but the ordnance that they've got on the backs. I mean, it's great because they usually start out as just something innocuous until you go up it and then it pops out and it shows the 2 colours. Yeah. There's a couple of unusual stationary enemies which I'll add in. There's one more good enemy as well to mention, but there is, and one of them is pretty much just a plant. And to me, and again, I'm grasping, so please, I apologise, but that weird plant type thing looks like it's either taken from. It waves at you and it even pops up in 3D sections and spits like pollen or something at you. But that looks like it could have been taken from like some inspiration from either the Triffids, the Attack of the Day of the Triffids, or even maybe to a small extent the Red Weed from from War of the Worlds, possibly.
Other than the fact that
it's covered in,
have the Red Weed.
It did, and it was all over the place. That's what you just see. There's another creature as well, which is comical looking and doesn't do much fighting, but it sits there, and that can be killed because the weeds kind of in the general gaming sections. There's like a purple sort of plant man, and he's just sitting there and just spits stuff at you and that. And one hit usually does them in, but the funny looking things. But one of the other unusual creatures, and the reason why we nearly didn't mention this creature is because it doesn't pop up till those last two missions. It's the mutant kangaroos.
Oh, yes.
You cannot forget the mutant kangaroos. I mean, they're canny tough because they're fast as hell, as you know. They come in about 3 colours as well, yeah. They've got they've got a quattro, if you've seen Total Recall. They've got like their own little guy living in the stomach that fires stuff at you. And they said this creature comes about 3 different shades and all, which all get tougher. By the time you're fighting the red ones, you've got generally by the time you're fighting about half a dozen red ones, you're using the small bomb, aren't you?
Aye, yeah. It can get
put a hell of a fight, like.
Aye. But,
good creatures like
the star of the show for me is definitely in the arcade the mid-level boss.
Oh, without a doubt, like we just said, that's a fantastic
impressive.
Creature.
I mean, at the end, the level boss isn't much to shout home about. It's just a big brain with an eyeball that moves around.
And it doesn't die properly as well from what I go. I mean, I'm quite sure that I've not even shot it before when I'm fighting. I've just blew all the enemies away on the level and it just sort of dies by itself.
Yeah.
You're hitting it and it's flashing all the time. It looks like it's taking damage and that, but you don't seem to need to really destroy it to actually win the level. So a bit disappointing, especially after fighting Death Adder at the end of Golden Axe, and he wasn't that hard. But, you had like a big guy to fight as opposed to like what amounted to be just like it feels a bit like a bonus level, But it is what it is, I mean. And you do get obviously fight another one of the mid-bosses before going into that section anyway, unfortunately, Mark says so.
But there is also a couple of enemies in the Operation Wolf style sections that don't show up in the game, like these little orange, yellow, spiky.
Is that the ones that live on the ceiling? Yeah, that's right.
There's like those things that come along the ceiling with like a tongue that attacks
those look like mad balls, don't they? Yeah. Mad balls attacking you, and then there is like ceiling clingers. And what is cool as well, though, they do generally put most of the creatures from the main game into the sections. This is going to feed into a good bit of not actually. And they attack you, so in some cases in slightly different ways from when you would normally fight them. It's the only level where you'll take on the giant versions. We nearly missed this enemy out, actually, I don't know how, but we nearly missed out the dwarf enemies, as I call them, or like the goblins, where it's sort of the second most basic enemy, where it's just half your height, and they come in several different colours and all have a few simple attacks. But there's a giant version that's almost like a mini boss in some of these levels that you have to shoot. But one little part to add about the running sections, the sideways shooter sections, is that again it's such a cool little element that only Alien Storm would add. Nearly every enemy that is in those levels is that, and this is the thing here. This is absolutely the thing. Influence is those enemies mutate from the enemies you found in the levels to completely different sort of creature, just purely for those running sections. And you'll even see a transition period. So the goblin
presentation is
absolutely. But the goblin creatures change into an almost spider-esque type sort of something. They even have a sound. They even have a sound that sounds like the sound of something out of the Thing. And if you've seen the scenes in the Thing, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You'll instantly think the giant slug monsters, they grow wings and that. And I just thought, cool, so fantastic. Like,
it's fantastic. Like it is. It's very, very good. Like I say, I'll keep saying it till I'm blue in the face, but this game's so well presented. Like even better so than maybe Golden Axe. And that was.
In some ways, I mean, I'll always have a massive love for Golden Axe in general. Like I said, I've got a few.
Golden Axe is a better game because there's in the arcade because there's more skill involved.
If
you're good at the game.
Alien Storm.
You're satisfied by playing it. Where Alien Storm is more of a chucking credits in.
You do tend to fight. Again, I suppose we could talk about the moves now for a second now, can't we?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a massive amount of variety there, unfortunately, but you're
a lot of situational, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's contextual. So each character's got their own weapon or weapons,
and they are different. Yeah.
So I mean, Scooter. If I've got this written down, Scooter's got like a laser whip that he'll use, which it feels like it's got a little bit more range sometimes than the others. but I think that's just me imagining it. He's got a rocket launcher that will shoot out of his foot, which is quite cool.
Which is great. That's where, again, presentation comes in it again.
He's got like a cannon thing that comes out of his shoulder and that. It's something that comes out of his head.
But just going back to what Mark's saying there, these are all contextual moves.
Yeah,
these are not different button combinations or even distance, are they? These are generally just what you tend to get up to.
I think it's distance.
Some
distance, like Golden Axe.
Putting their heads in that, not picking them up and chucking them. Aye.
The Karen, Carla, or whatever her name is, she'll use a flamethrower. And you've typically just got variations
Tyrus flare,
flamethrower. Tyrus flare, yeah. Gordon or Garth, he'll use it's like a plasma cannon, isn't it?
That's right.
He's got like a shoulder mounted rocket launcher.
I love when he pulls his pistol out when he
pulls
two shots at close range. That's
cool
the Golden Axe head stab, you know what I mean? But it was just so quick and cool. It's like two quick shots and then maybe a kick or a last laser, a last blast.
And all the while it's like extremely well animated. I mean, you know what you'd expect from a game from 1990. It doesn't hold back, even though you've got so much extra detail in these characters and that, you know. And the enemies as well, likewise, all extremely well animated. Boss, the mid-level 3 boss is a great showcase, especially the cone head bit where it's moving around and all its different eyes
are moving individually animated and everything. Yeah, I mean, and it's like it gets less eyes on the more like the less powerful version. So it goes to show that it took quite a bit to animate this character. But yeah, I mean, Alien Storm's overall cast and more the monsters and the characters for me personally, because the characters generally to look at, apart from Scooter, do look fairly generic. I won't say the moves because they're quite creative, but you've got like a colour-coded set of characters and they do what they need to do and they do it well. But when you look at these, it's the design of the monsters, like I said, you know. And so what's cool is the designers could have easily turned around and just said, right, we're just going to copy the thing. We're just going to copy Xenomorph from the Alien. Yeah. We're going to have a chest burster. And the cool thing is they've even got like their own sort of equivalents in the shooter sections where you can feel it's trying to mimic a chest burster, isn't that coming at you, you know? And so, but they're not chest bursters. They're not the alien strong creatures, you know? And it's like, they could have easily tried to go that route, which some games have, without the official licensing. But Alien Storm kept its own identity and its cast of characters and creatures, you know? And like I said, there's not one of these. I mean, the base, like we've just already discussed, the most basic and standard enemy in the game is a little slime that wobbles towards you and dies in one hit. And you can see it's deliberately there just to go, right, I'm just nothing, you know what I mean?
Confidence builder.
Yeah, it is, yes. And then the next thing you know, you're getting beaten, having the shit beaten out of you by slugs and goblinoids and whatnot, you know. It's like, it's unbelievable.
But to fall back onto the controls, the game's based on a 3-button system. So you've got an attack button, you've got a roll button or evade, and you've got a magic button. Now the attack is just you spam the button.
You can charge Golden Axe style as well, can't you?
Yeah, you can run as well with a double tap of the either direction, and you can do like a stun attack to an enemy, which doesn't do much damage, but it does help with crowd control a little bit. The roll attack, once you start rolling, you can hit the attack button and you can do like a diving attack from that roll.
But doesn't this feed into the energy system up top in the Mega Drive version? And that is the one attack that doesn't use energy.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. So you can literally, it doesn't do a great lot of damage, but it's quite versatile. So you can be whacking enemies all the time and it will work. This isn't the Mega Drive version though. And then you end up like where you can just literally keep on going for much of the game quite safe. So if you didn't have much weapon energy left, and you were maybe halfway through a level and you're prepared to grind for 5 minutes solid to get the next level, get a bit of energy, then you could just resort to this one single attack just to say, right, just to get us through. Get us through, which I have done on some occasions.
Before we get back onto the last of the controls there, in the arcade, I don't think you can actually run out of energy to the point where you can't use your standard weapon, where in the Mega Drive you can, which it makes it a little bit more difficult in my opinion, but at the same time makes you think more about conserving your energy, you know?
Yeah.
In the arcade, it seems to be just there purely to stop you spamming smart bombs. But anyway, controls-wise, the last move is the running jump down attack.
Which is a great move as well,
Which in the arcade, I'm honest, it's pointless using it. But in the Mega Drive version, it's a very useful move against that mid-level boss.
The boss,
very good.
Which again, though, we'll get into quickly, well, that boss does change, doesn't it, Mark? that boss changes in the main. And when we say a change, it doesn't become a new boss completely. There's just a difference in how it's handled and the amount of stages it has.
Two forms, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think you should talk about this.
Yeah,
recently.
So it starts off with the same version as in the arcade, so it comes out with its witch's nose.
There's two different times you fight it though. Earlier in the game, you fight that green version by itself as a single boss, then you fight the red one later along with the Conehead, don't you? So,
well, I died before that, so I don't know.
Oh, damn.
I used to be able to complete it, but I'm shit at now. But yeah, so you once you kill it, you then get the Conehead variant coming on, and you have to kill that as well.
Oh.
Now it's a lot harder to kill that compared to the other things.
Well, what they've done with this particular boss fight is two separate boss battles now as well. As in, obviously, two separate boss battles, but in two separate stages. But you fight a green variant of the big nose alien, whatever you want to call it, and you beat that, and that dies, and you get the little the energy creatures to give you health and whatnot.
Heads.
You know, so that is a fight, and that's over with. But later on in the game, you do fight what is quite similar, but not exactly the same as the arcade big middle boss fight. Big middle boss fight, 'cause it is a big boss, you know, a big boss, quite literally. But you fight the red version of the big nose monster, you kill that creature, and then instead of it mutating into the gigantic
Cone.
the middle level of the gigantic,
the second stage enemy,
which is in no other version. Pretty much no other version. Pretty much. You kill that first version, and then literally it disappears, dies, and the Conehead creature comes on separately. I wonder if that must be a little bit of a problem with the Mega Drive being able to do that sort of amazing morphing animation. I mean, yeah, because there's a lot of frames in it though. There's quite a lot of frames in that.
I mean, it's probably what, a 4 meg or 8 meg card.
It would have been 4 meg still, I reckon, at the time. The next one was 4 meg, yeah, it might have been. So they maybe could have done it a bit better if it had been another year when it would make a big card, but it's not a problem.
It didn't need it.
Nah.
I mean, the Mega Drive misses a few things. It misses like all of the presentation, the little cutscenes and stuff that we didn't even really mention.
But it does enough. Like it says, it gives you that laboratory level back, which is a good level actually. And that is, remember, that's
it takes away stuff that was nice to have in the arcade and made you want to stick quarters. I keep saying quarters on these podcasts.
No,
10 pences in.
Quarters.
Keep sticking your 10 pences in. But it adds to your stuff that's going to make it more valuable for 40 or 50 quid, whatever you spent on it back then, you know.
Well, I tell you what it is, comparing the two, just those two versions for a second though, I like to think that it was a deliberate, and it would have been, I hope, it was a very deliberate business decision from Sega, because at the end of the day, they've got an arcade version, which is its own version with its own set of levels and a game feel, although the game feel is very similar between the two. But, you know, you've got this one version and you have a Mega Drive version.
Plays really similar.
The thing is as well, it'll feed into a future article one day, because it said going into what we feel is different about the mid-90s, going from arcade to console gaming, like say the Tekkens and the Virtua Fighters and that. So this was still back in a day where the two versions were different enough that you could take your 10 pences or your quarters, you could go to the arcade game with 2 or 3 quid, meaning would have a player.
Completely different.
And exactly, we could enjoy it, right, and spend that little bit of money and then go home and fire up the Mega Drive, play the Mega Drive in 2 player, and have had 2 totally different but equally excellent experiences.
Yeah.
Obviously that all changed in later years, but a very different conversation for a very different day, to be honest, But I miss those eras. I miss those years because I like that. I mean, you could argue and say, well, I want to have the arcade experience at home, the exact arcade experience. And there is people who would say that, and there's games I would say that about. There is, because Golden Axe generally is with bells on, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, obviously another conversation for another day as well. But still, from a business perspective and for keeping us happy still as well, it is still nice to have those 2 very different versions.
I reckon we've hinted enough that there might be an upcoming Golden Axe episode at one point.
Well, I think so. Maybe
it's nailed on, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it definitely.
It's obviously nailed on. But
would you like to talk about the different versions for a little bit?
Let's have 5 on the different versions, and then we'll start steering this one home.
Well, what I'll do is I'll not mention the Mega Drive again now, because we've spoke about that version. It's a beautiful game, and
obviously I'll let you ramble.
Yeah, no problem.
The 8 and 16-bit computer version.
Well, like I say, I mean,
in console Master System.
Yeah, and the Master System got to be in there because that's important. I won't spend too long, but we'll start with the Master System version because it's the last of the 3 official Sega-built versions, as we would call it. You know, Now, I thought I'd spent a lot of time with that version a good few years back, maybe about 10 years back, and it turns out I hadn't. So I watched a long play recently of it and quite impressed, actually. I mean, I remember reading at least one review back in the day, and the review was terrible. It got about 40-50%, and they said it was shite, basically, and it's like, well, I mean, obviously it's not an amazing looking game. It's not going to be, it's a Master System 8-bit game compared to
some sexy looking Master System games out there, don't mind.
Alien Storm isn't necessarily one of them, but what it does is, though, it takes the Mega Drive route. Bear in mind, I do want to mention the dual mode in the Mega Drive version quickly at one point before we move off this, so I will move back into Mega Drive. Something me mentioned, but
fair enough.
I do need to mention about. But the Master System version takes the route of the Mega Drive a bit and remixes things a little bit again, adds a little bit as far as levels go and takes them away. But its biggest, newest feature, it's got some detractions, but the wood is an 8-bit system. Biggest newest feature is many of the enemies are completely remade on new. There's some completely new creatures, and some of them look quite cool, I can't really complain at the design of these. Again, I don't even know where some of these enemies would come from, but they're different enough. There's a new middle boss enemy that looks a little bit similar, not exactly at all, but a little bit similar to the middle form of the big boss from the arcade version. So this is the only game where you get to sort of fight a creature that looks a little bit
out the Mega Drive. Yeah.
It's a different colour. It's got slug feet as opposed to legs, which it probably works out being hard to animate this. Yeah, it's a massive spite. But it moves around a little bit like that. In fact, it doesn't even seem to have a proper attack. It just touches you. But the fact that there's still got a creature that looks a little bit like that in there was interesting. It's not in any other version. The other main boss is in there, in the two forms based more on the Mega Drive. So you're fighting the big nose alien. That creature dies, and you take on a version of the Conehead alien. There's a new level, there's at least one new level in the form of a subway level, a running level as well, which is great. It's got a small amount of missions overall, but the game still takes about the same size, about the same time to complete, I mean. The one biggest change of the Master System, one biggest change for me, which is interesting in itself, is that when you complete the penultimate mission, which takes place after destroying the UFO, you go into the UFO and end up fighting the last mission, which normally takes place in the mothership in space. That becomes now the UFO level. So the grounded UFO is the last level. Right. It's not that it doesn't lose those levels. It hasn't cut them. It's just moved them into a different environment, hasn't it, basically?
Yeah.
That's all I'll say about the Master System version. It just was meant to be brief, and I'm only going to go and even brief about the computer versions.
So which computer versions are out there?
There's 5 home computer releases, all released by US Gold. All, possibly except the C64 version, because I can't confirm it, released by a company known as Teatex. Now, anybody listening to this now who knows of Teatex will know that the generally regarded as not being very good. That's me putting it lightly. In their defence, I'll say that in the research I've done in the past on Teatex, I do know that they were making games in absolutely fraction of the time that other companies were doing. So bear in mind, these are arcade conversions, which would have took about a year at the time to build. Actual arcade games, sorry. So, you take, say, 1943 as an example, which I personally absolutely love on the Commodore 64.
And you hear it's a good conversion.
Very slow-moving game, but very playable, I thought. Much better than the first one, which was terrible because it's so hard, 1942. But that was just one example, But generally, Teatex's games are considered bad, and some of them are, like Street Fighter 1 is a bad game. But what people forget is that they make these games in a couple of months sometimes. So you're taking... Sometimes they didn't even have access to the actual original arcade sprites from the boards and backgrounds and stuff, so they're having to redraw these from scratch. So as a company making a game and building a successful product, then they did what they set out to do. Yeah. But Alien Storm, all 5 versions, personally, I think are very good. I'll mention the Amiga and the ST versions together quickly because they do need, they're pretty similar. The colours are not as... The colours don't pop as well as the original arcade or even Mega Drive versions, as you would expect, but they're quite close. They're fairly smooth with a little bit of jerkiness here and there, especially on the ST versions. You don't expect perfection, but I was impressed at how much of the game is actually there, and it's pretty much cock on. I mean, you've got the full game there, all 3 playable characters, 2-player mode, all the monsters except for the mutant kangaroos. Pretty much one of my favourite characters. Don't know why they took the mutant kangaroos out.
Yeah, them were annoying.
Well, it's probably his favourite version, the Omega then. But for some reason on the last 2 levels, those 2 enemies on those 2 versions are no longer there. Or they weren't when I played and watched the recent walkthrough of both as well. But very good version. Omega version doesn't have in-game music from what I could gather, but it does have intermission music, which is quite close to the arcade, so it's nice to have those in there. ST does have music, and it's pretty much using some of the tracks from the games in the wrong areas, of course, completely inappropriate tunes to the action going on screen, which is pretty much the arcade game as a whole in some cases.
Yeah, aye.
But there's in-game music. Amstrad version, extremely colourful, very good-looking game for Amstrad. I mean, bear in mind, if you were an Amstrad user, you would be playing this in 1991, so you've got to put your mindset back to then and go, well, if you like the arcade game, you're playing this game looks nice, it looks good, it uses Mode 0, which is the Amstrad's most colourful, and it looks great.
It's high colour, isn't
it? Good sound, good, not the fastest moving game, but competent, again, all of the features are there, all the levels are there. One big interesting note I thought was it's was it? No, it's not. It's a Commodore version. Actually, I'll get back to this quickly. But we'll move on to Spectrum quick. Spectrum version is not directly related to the Amstrad. The code is there, so the feel is there, but it's a little bit faster than the Amstrad version. Same enemies. Bear in mind, Amstrad version and Spectrum actually have the mutant kangaroos in it. Right. They're in it. They're not in the 16-bit version, but the bastards are back in the 8-bit version. So all the enemies there again. Spectrum version is monochrome. Now, usually you hear people say monochrome on the top of Spectrum games, you'll get eyes rolled. But you have to check out the graphics on this game. I mean, they're absolutely perfect. I believe, even though I don't know for definite, but I believe that for the 16-bit versions at least, that they lifted the sprites and backgrounds from the original PCBs, which is something that was done by Creative Materials for Final Fight. And Double Dragon 2 also by what would have been Binary Design, but became Creative Materials, development teams at the time who did those games. So even though Tatex did Alien Storm, I would have thought they would have access to that type of technology as well to lift sprites. And they look like they're lifted. They do look identical.
But looking at it today, I thought...
Yeah, I would have said these are
really good, you know. It just doesn't look like it plays as good, but
no, and it wouldn't. You wouldn't expect it. There's less animation. Like I was looking at the slug aliens, they don't ripple at the bottom. It's stationary, but it is on the 8-bit. They move on the 8-bits. But the spectacle graphics, beautiful looking game. Every enemy and character instantly recognisable. The monochrome is clean. I like to say clean because it just you can see the game. You know what's going on. Normally, when you've got colour clash, like say Double Dragon 1 on Spectrum by Melbourne House, you look at that and sometimes you can't tell what's going on, especially on level 3. Where, again, Alien Storm, sometimes the monochrome, as long as you can play that game and you can see what you need to see, you're laughing. But like I say, essentially the same basic gameplay as the Amstrad. Finally, Commodore 64 version. Now, I really like this. I like this version as well. Obviously, being a Commodore man at that time as well would have helped. But again, that's got in-game music again, where the Spectrum and
incredibly catchy little tune.
Yeah, it is. It keeps the enemies.
Seems to be the same tune playing all the way through, but it's a good little tune.
Yeah, and it's over and over again, but it's not too bad. You know, and it was expected, and you could turn it off. There was a turn-off button, I suppose, because I didn't hear sound effects, and I would have liked to.
Yeah,
didn't get a chance to hear that.
I think I heard some little but in between.
Might have been a little bit.
Yeah. Nothing you could really see. Oh, is that meant to be a sound effect?
The Commodore, all 5 versions are generally very close to the arcade with only very slight little trims here and there. I'll not even call them cuts. Or in the case of the Amiga and ST, there's a couple of sections that look like they've been lifted more directly from the Mega Drive version. Not new sections, by the way, but just sections on the Mega Drive that were extended. So definitely one that stands out is the UFO section. You know how many of you say it, but the C64 did one thing for me, which I was telling Mark. I know many would say it's a little thing or not even a thing at all, but it did something for me which I was impressed with, and it put a boss fight in that UFO section, and the boss was cool as fuck. Basically, what they've done is when you fight the as we call it, the mid-boss alien, the first time you fight that alien during level 3, you fight the big nose alien as it is, and you beat it, and it's gone. There's no cone heads, there's no second stage on the arcade version. It's a single fight. You beat it, dead, gone. All it does pop up later, but I'll digress. But what they've done instead is they've put the Conehead alien in that UFO section. So before you can go in and take on the 3D shooting section, you've got to take on the Conehead. But it's massive. It is absolutely enormous. I don't know why they've done this and whose decision this was, and I didn't know the Commodore could even handle it. But they've decided to take its arses and times, that's all they are.
Right.
They've decided to multiply the orifices that it has by 3. So the thing is massive on the screen. I mean, this is a Commodore 64. And I thought, and it's got some animation.
Layer or something.
It might be actually, but each layer is a different colour as well, so it just pops. And I thought, that looked really cool. It's a Commodore 64, but the last thing I'll mention on these different versions, going back to Mega Drive for a second, got to do this.
Jewel
is the Jewel, and the Jewel is fun. The Jewel started off as a feature in Golden Axe 1, 12 battles, 1 player only. Well, there's a 2-player Jewel where you fight each other in a single round, and that's in Alien Storm and Golden Axe 2. But 12 rounds in Golden Axe 1, not very hard, but great fun, just pitting you against 12 fixed battles of various enemies. Alien Storm has the Jewel, only has 9 battles, but they're hard as hell. Once you get to about battle 5 or 6, I believe it was, I remember struggling, and I think it ends up with a fight with like Big Nose Alien, possibly the Conehead.
Yeah,
and it's like its structure is exactly the same as Golden Axe, and it was just a nice little bonus to have tacked on to an already fun game. And that has a 1v1 dual mode as well. So Street Fighter 2 before Street Fighter 2, if you want to call that. But
well, I think we've probably done Alien Storm to death now. Should we review? And
I think we should review it, mate. Yes,
you can go first on this one, Glenn.
Well, as I said, I'm going to give it an 8.5.
Reasonable mark.
Yeah, I mean,
reasonable mark.
I don't like the, be always putting a safe mark out there, but bear in mind this review is just for the arcade game. Like I say, a couple of flaws because the levels aren't perfect. I would have liked a bit more variation in the levels. I would have liked a way to find a way to do possibly a variation in height within the levels. Like an elevation, just like to give that different sort of variety. And Alien Storm sadly doesn't have that. But it replaces it with like an eclectic cast of characters, including enemies and 3 main characters. It's got great music, great sound, very impressive cabinet and presentation overall. It's it's a fine piece of Sega gaming that is just timeless, and that's what I'll say on Alien Storm, mate. So
I'm gonna go in with an 8.8 for Alien Storm. I think the biggest reasons for me is the memories when I was a smaller child than I am now. Watching the cabinet down at Bellaby's Amusements, wanting to play, didn't have any money left, that kind of thing. And then when you did play, it didn't disappoint. Just that variation, the 3 different game types for me.
Yeah,
keeps you wanting more.
Well, that's where I suppose it beats Golden Axe a bit. You can say, look, but you don't give us that. You have stand to beat them up, and you've give us 3 different
And the thing is, it did all 3 variations well.
Yeah,
It didn't just be good at one and be shit at the other 2. It handled all 3 variations really well. The sprite scale and everything was in there. All the stuff you expected to see from a Sega cabinet in them days, and then some. So for me, definitely an 8.8. Does not disappoint. Play it. And on that note, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
All the best.
Bye now.
Bye now.